Hello and welcome to the weekly Kashmir University Video Digest Quest. First, a look at the highlights. International Seminar on Literature and Trauma Studies organized. Allama Iqbal Library organizes Meet the Eminent. Scholars discuss Silk Route and its contemporary relevance. And Sheikhul Alam organizes Extension Lecture. An international seminar on literature and trauma studies, theory, narrative and representation was organized by the Department of English. While welcoming the guest, Head Department of English Professor Lily Watt in her inaugural remarks said that the theme has been chosen to broaden the understanding of multiplicity of perspectives.
The present theme, Literature and Trauma Studies, Theory, Narrative and Representation, too has been chosen to invite an integrated, multidisciplinary discussion on one of the current escalating problems and challenges worldwide. The department believes that such exposures to interdisciplinary thought enhances the critical thinking of learners and broadens their understanding of multiplicity of perspectives. This seminar aims to bring to fore the cultural and psychological context of literature in terms of its relationship with human nature and existence, to explore the individual and collective dimensions of traumatic events in the light of the new wars, new forms of exploitation, modern variants of slavery, and the surfacing of domestic and sexual violence. Again, the aim of this seminar is to explore ways in which writers interact with and depict traumatic experiences often deemed irreducible to language.
Vice Chancellor Professor Talat Ahmed said that trauma should not be reduced to war and conflict only.
There are also trauma in the sense of exploitation of the underprivileged for over decades or even hundreds of years, and how people must be feeling about their exploitation, and also the keeping silent after being exploited is again something which is very important, which I think needs to be understood. Similarly, we know that there are traumas of the other type, like sex exploitation at workplaces, at home or anywhere, and still how people have suffered. And the best example is what was recently very famous, this Me Too episode. So all these things now with the social media and the changes that is happening in the world, so I think they are very important to have a very open society, and people should have the platform to express and understand.
Faculty member at the Comparative Literature and Translation Studies, Ambedkar University, Delhi, Professor Radha Chakravarti presented a paper on war, trauma, memory and literature.
Alok Rai describes the initial phase of partition literature as a pornography of violence. Tropes of dismemberment and mutilation proliferate, signifying the fragmentation of identities and memories. But even more eloquent than the vocabulary of violence is the language of silence. For as Veena Das argues, in the immediate aftermath of partition, the inability to articulate the experience of trauma seemed to impose on many victims a condition of dumbness. In this sense, partition literature can be read as an attempt at articulating the unspeakable. It is only after the lapse of some decades that the process of remembering, of confronting repressed memories becomes possible. Such confrontations sometimes work as negotiations of the past, but in some literary works, the partition becomes a metaphor for other kinds of violence, especially the persistence of communal violence in the history of our region.
Renowned psychiatrist of the Valley, Dr. Mushtaq Margoob, said in literary writing on culture, trauma and post-traumatic growth, there is always a danger of it being hijacked by the career groups.
These novels and other things that these youngsters are writing is not only they are processing their kind of trauma at individual level or collective level as such as collective or mass trauma, but this is also interpretation of cultural kind of a trauma where they are giving meaning to all this. But sometimes this cultural trauma is hijacked by agents, actors, and then again trauma comes as a central kind of a force, its interpretation, and then there are the carriers who give a meaning to it. If this is only something where you give an emotional kind of an interpretation of things, and these carrier groups, you have carrier groups, even one doesn't have enough time to interpret, suppose collaborator. At the end of the whole kind of, once you end the novel, he says that Fateh, I will offer Fateh, I will process it. That is processing it. But he does talk about mullahs and other people, which is everywhere. But at the same time, many a times when this cultural kind of a thing gets interpreted by the groups, the perpetrator and the victim has his own interpretation. They are totally, at two poles. And many a times, as I said, that if this gets hijacked in a way that these carrier groups carry on with the vulnerable kind of the community members as such, sometimes polarization happens.
Director Edith Cowan, Centre for Global Issues Australia, Professor Paul, addressed his keynote speech through a recorded video. The Allama Iqbal Library organized Meet the Eminent with the renowned Dr. Professor Muhammad Sultan Khuru. Meet the Eminent is a flagship program organized by the Allama Iqbal Library since 2007, in which important persons are invited to share and narrate their life history. The same is recorded for future generations. Librarian Professor G.M.P. Rizada, while presenting the welcome address, introduced the guests to participants.
Professor Khuru spent his next 30 years in exploring the intriguing behavior of this entity and its agent hepatitis E virus. It is heartening to learn that Professor Khuru spent money generated from his private practice to fund his research projects on hepatitis E. Professor Khuru joined Sikkim Sura, Srinagar in 1982, and it was here that he discovered the disease entity of hepatobiliary pancreatic ascaris, a biliary disease so common in this community due to extremely high prevalence of the intestinal helminth. Professor Khuru built up a strong research team at the Sikkims, and he did extensive epidemiological studies on peptic ulcer, gallstones, esophageal and gastric cancer, and established the state of J&K in epidemiological map as a zone for distinctive disease pattern.
Registrar Dr. Nisar Ahmed Mir said that Meet the Eminent is a great initiative which makes it possible to interact with the great personalities of Kashmir.
That there are what we call in sociology, we call reference groups or reference individuals. So always what I have been taught by my teachers that these reference groups or reference individuals play a major role in the personality development of an individual. So this is always a rare opportunity to meet such great personalities, particularly in our university. I hope that because at present contemporary times we get immense material about these personalities on our internet also, but to see them physically, to interact with them physically, it is a great opportunity. I wish in future we could arrange such interactions with our students.
Congratulating Allama Iqbal Library for roping in Dr. Khuru, Vice Chancellor Professor Talat Ahmed said that he hopes that the renowned doctor would come regularly to share his experience.
I am very happy that he has made most of his discoveries within Kashmir. I mean, given the facilities that we have, and then he has made name and brought name to the state and the country. And I hope that the youngsters from this state, they will be inspired by listening to him and other colleagues who have come for interaction. And I hope that Professor Khoru will always give us some time whenever we need, not to be cured for hepatitis E, but to give in general guidance in terms of the health and the security within the valley.
Professor Talat also made an important announcement with regard to keep a section of library open for all the people.
We have also planned now to have a section in the library where the senior people, senior professors and even other colleagues who want to come and use the library, there will be some space for them. If they want to come and use, we will be happy to welcome them.
Dr. Waheed, a colleague of Dr. Khoru, paid tributes to the latter for his work.
As a patient care, he proved an excellent clinician, and as a teacher, he is unmatched. And as a researcher, he is, I can say, he is forefather of research in medical profession. He inspired generations towards excellence, towards publications, towards research. I remember in Government Medical College, Srinagar, Dr. Ali Jan once said that Khoru will touch stars of the skies. We had a professor of pathology, Dr. Goel. His degrees were, he was DSc, PhD, MD, FRCP. Was a great teacher, but very miser. If a person deserved 10 marks out of 10, he would give him 4. But Khoru had impressed him so much that he must be remembering it. He once declared in our class that Muhammad Sultan Khoru is the best student in India.
Thanking the university for providing him opportunity to speak on his topic, Dr. Khoru said that whatever he did and achieved was not because of his genes, but because of perseverance and fortitude.
I must mention that what I did in these decades and what I indulged in did not come to me as a matter of inheritance. And many times, and probably at most times, I used innovative methods and means to do what was to be done. I must say I was born in an educated family in hard times in Kashmir history, and today I find it my duty to pay tribute and homage to my parents, family members and elders who educated me in extremely hard times, taught me dedication, ethics, patience, empathy and honesty. And while I was growing into an adult to face the vagaries of life, they stood behind me to make me respect the values they taught me. To my students and whom I taught, I always used 2 principles, namely, 1, I never taught a student what I did not believe in, and I never asked a student to do something what I could not do myself. So, I tell my taught, you may have loved me, you may have hated me, or you may have stared at me, but you had nothing against me, because I never taught you what I did not practice myself.
Dr. Khoru reminded scholars, students and faculty that success is a sum of small steps done consistently with forbearance.
I must say that for the last 4 decades, I have intense belief in one concept, that nature has kept many hidden and uncovered agendas in health and disease and science and biology. And to uncover them, we need hard work, we need dedication, and we need to stand on one's feet amongst the skeptics and get the support of those who love you and believe in you. Secondly, you need to spend days and days, nights, without and in absence of your family to feel and steady the pain of those who suffer or to uncover the truth. In addition, you need to spend nights with pen and paper to pen down what you believe in and what you want to tell the world about what you believe in. So this is the concept of what you would call as biomedical or basic research. The path of such research is treacherous, hard, full of failures. There are misses and there are missteps, and have more falls than rises. However, in all this there are few small successes, and these successes are always rewarding, because anything you uncover in nature does not come without a price to be paid.
On how he developed hepatitis E, Dr. Kuru said that the mortality rate among pregnant ladies made him to take up the research.
This discovery of hepatitis E started with my extreme belief that epidemics of jaundice and resultant mortality in pregnant women in our community is an hidden saga. So there's something hidden at that time, that there were so many epidemics coming in India, Iran, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and so many developing areas, and pregnant women were dying, and we didn't know what was it. And West people were saying, "Oh, this is all nonsense. It doesn't happen in West," and it certainly doesn't happen in West. So we thought it was a hidden saga. To uncover it needed hard work, persistence, belief in oneself, and honesty of purpose. It needed courage to stand on one's feet, to fight the skeptics. Those of you who will be involved in research, and when you talk about something, the first thing you will say, the skeptics will come against you.
Assistant Professor Dr. Muhammad Ishaq Lund conducted the proceedings of the function. The Center of Central Asian Studies organized a two-day international conference on Silk Route, historical and contemporary relevance. Speaking on the occasion, Director CCAS Professor G.N. Khaki said that conducting seminar on Silk Route has been the permanent feature of the center.
Study of Silk Route has become an advanced discourse of the contemporary academic activity. Prominent research institutions around the globe have been established to evaluate costs and benefits of the roads, besides many other relevant issues. This international trade network that was instrumental in the early centuries of history brought whole world into a single network of trading activity. For example, the boatmen of Bosphorus during the Ottoman Empire were paid tokens that could be cashed at the banks of river access. This speaks of the interconnectedness and people-to-people contact by virtue of the roads that have been made open to the people of distant lands and different regions.
Vice Chancellor Professor Talat Ahmed said that if China can do things, India should be able to do it as well.
I am very sure that with the number of research scholars that we have here, as well as in JNU, it's a big center, Jamia Millia, and all the participants are here. So many new things will come out with the research that they have been doing. And I do agree that what China is doing, we should not lag behind. Actually, we should also participate. I was in Ladakh, and there is a place called She, where they are making a road which goes towards, follow the Silk Route. But how much it will be open for people or it is for military purpose is under question.
Former Dean Academic Affairs Professor Muhammad Ashraf Wani said that due to closure of Silk Road, the Valley of Kashmir has suffered economically.
It is nostalgic when one comes across that how Kashmir was having commercial relations with the neighboring world, and unfortunately these ties were snapped first by because of these imperial rivalries between Great Britain and Russia towards the beginning of the 20th century, and then we became the victims of the partition of India. Whatever little contacts we had, those also got snapped after the partition, and then China also also closed its borders, and Kashmir was converted into a cocoon. And the problem of Kashmir is largely the result of this geographical siege, under which Kashmir has been reeling, and because of which we are facing a lot of economic problems.
Vice Chancellor, Islamic University of Science and Technology, Professor Mushtaq Siddique, said that the Silk Route had cross-cultural moments which the present One Belt, One Road lacks.
The only good thing that is happening is that many countries are trying to participate in the OBOR. But where I'm really bothered is, as a person who is a citizen of Kashmir, is bothered about it has only more of the economic interests and the strategic interests. But the interest that Silk Road had was the movement of individuals, movement of people. So it was a cross-cultural, interaction. That probably is not going to happen unless and until we have a freedom of movement amongst the participating country. Otherwise, it is a possibility that in London, we will just put a container onto a train and it will reach Kashmir, or it will reach maybe, for example, China, or it will reach somewhere Afghanistan. It won't help basically the present day crisis. Present day crisis will be dealt with if we have a freedom of movement of individuals, of the communities, the way Silk Road had done it.
Delivering his keynote address, Dean School of Social Science, JNU New Delhi, Professor Ajay Patnaik gave historical perspective of the Silk Road.
This was also not the oldest route, international route, from east to west. Prior to the Silk Route, we had the Persian Royal Road. It was functional during Achaemenid period, which is about 500 to 350 BC, from northern Persia to Asia Minor, that is Turkey today. The Han dynasty is credited with establishing the route by, cutting the Taklamakan Desert, northern route and southern route, meeting in Kashgar, and onward to Iran and Turkey. But there was a Persian route, and later on, that route was linked to the Chinese route. Now, so as has been said, that it was not one single road, multiple roads that connected India, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, everything. It was not one single horizontal road from east to west, China to Rome, but multiple roads. So, and this road also everyone knows here, I think, that this road went out of use with the development of maritime long-distance trade from Europe to Asia, especially after Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India in 1498. So this route became less used, though small trade, for example, between India of that time and Afghanistan or Chinese Turkestan and other areas continued. But the long-distance trade with Europe was not through this now land corridors or land routes.
The Markaz-e-Noor Center for Sheikhul Alam Studies organized an extension lecture on the writings of Sheikhul Alam. Head Department of Kashmiri, Professor Majroor Rashid, said that the impact of the contemporary language is always on literary writings.
Zaban is basically bolne iwan chhe na, ye chhe bad important asan. Behral bannich kat chi ki yes zaban murawwaj asan chhe yes bolne iwan chhe asan. Ilmi zaban chhe badal asan, magar yes वक्तच इल्मी ज़बान आसान छि अगर कं इल्म आजकल कोशिश पॉइंट लेखान आसि कं जेन्युइन कं सीरियस चीज यम सो लेखान आसि तमिस आसि इम्पैक्ट यमि वक्तुक तो यत वक्तस मन सो रोजान छु यत वक्तस मन सो बसान तो लसान छु तमिक इम्पैक्ट तमिस सो कर न ज़बान तिथे पड़ इस्तेमाल पर शेखुल आलमन करमस छु शेखुल आलमन मुन जनानस इस मा वनो जनानस तेमुन जनाई की तेमुन जनानस कुन जनान करते मुजक्कर इस्तेमाल तमिस वजन सा वजन योत जरूरत से बदल पे लफ्ज इस्तेमाल कर मगर जनानस वोन तम अजुक शायर वन जनानस क्या वन जनानी.
Head Persian Department Professor Shad Hussain said that such lectures should become a norm.
मे बासान मुफीद रोज डिस्कोर्स अगर तवसीह खुद बुन अख सिलसिला गसे यथ मजन शेखुल आलम युस जन सारी खोत मुतबरक हस्ती यहदिस कलाम किस अकिस लफ्जस पे नजर दिवान ताकि पन्निस कल्चर सोन तथ दिमह बे नजर दिमहोस कोता रिच कल्चर. हाँ अत मज हिंदू कल्चर संस्कृतिक वारिया मुस्तार लिखमुत यह मंदश कह कुंजे नुन कह चीज़ कुंजे कह चीज़ वजुम वरुत अन मंदश दरअसल सारी खुद बजर से कित करो पता करो पता इस्तेमाल ये करो इस्तेमाल.
Assistant Professor of Kashmiri Department Dr. Shafaqat Altaf said that Today's readers have to understand that some pollination or mnemonic transmission is there in the shruks of Sheikhul Alam.
Zabani muntakili, yet mnemonic transmission is vananchu, hundi silsil root takriban 300 variant jari. Yemkin Sanskrit labzan sauti, morphemi, the manvi badlav takar sapud. Yutu yot ne balki yimo muswad nigar to nakal neviso. Sheikhul Alam sun matan kalamban kor, temo korat panya ayi karim. Yavaro interpolation. I may allow to yiti pose the kiesa khand. तो केचा तालिया बाज सुकारो कोरत पनिन कत मनरावन बापत या पनिन इंफरादी अन्ना बहाल थाउन वक शेखुल आलमसन शेरी मतन हेर फेर शफी शोकुन यह वनुन छु मे बासन सही द लिटरेट रीडर्स कोट द लिटरेट रीडर्स एंड assumptive and motivated scholars on the contrary to do mischief with texts so that their own point of view is supported and their penchant for pedantry is satisfied.
That's all for today's episode. Log on to our website emmrckashmir.com where you can check the latest episode of The Quest. You can also watch it on our YouTube channel, that is KU Television. Do send us your valuable suggestions at our email address, that is quest@emmrckashmir.com. Before I take your leave, here are a few words of wisdom. To admit that I'm weak is the exercise of strength.